Welcome to the Replenishing Life Project. 30 days to recover from burnout and reclaim your vitality. With your hosts, Morgan B. and Lucy Ann Chard.
Hi, and welcome to the Replenishing Life Project. I'm Morgan B., and I'm here with my co-host, Lucy Ann Chard. Hi,
Hey,
Lucy.
everybody. Hi.
We're very happy today to introduce our special guest, Colette Stefan. Colette is a magical speaker, intuitive artist, and author with a great sense of humor, who shares universal, life-transforming information to provide energetic upgrades that will inspire you to soar with her to new heights in the way of the dragons at seminars around the globe. She's been featured on many radio shows and tele-summits, and has her own radio show, The Truth is Funny, Shift Happens. And Colette, oh my gosh, and you have so many books, so many things, Colette. So hi, welcome to the...
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see you, Morgan, again, and Lucy. Thank you so much for having me do this interview and be part of this Replenishing Life project. I really, really am having a lot of fun with you guys.
Great. Well, so tell us a bit about you and the work that you're creating in the world.
Well, for the last 15 years or so, I guess it's been 15 years now, I have been dedicating myself to understanding how energetic shifting can be applied to people's lives. And it was not a gentle push for me to get into this work. My family was going through like a major, major rough time. We were losing one family member after another to death and hardship and illness. And so I was like, my dad had collapsed, and within a 36-hour period, he was totally paralyzed, and he was 68 at the time. And he ran his business by blinking his one eye. That's all he could. You know, he had to be trained. He had to learn how to walk and talk, and he went through hell. And but he did regain all of this. But there was a lot that happened at the hospital. And there was some very amazing people, like really caring people. And then there was some, things that happened that shouldn't have. And so it really made me, after my dad passed, I realized that there had to be a better way to look after people. And so I dedicated myself. I promised my dad that I would tell his story. And that's one of my books, Life Spark, Short Stories of Inspiration, where I share my dad's story of, what we went through and how it led me to this work. And so as I said, it wasn't a gentle push, but what I discovered, I studied several modalities. And so I was using the body and recognizing that our spinal column and our brain, our central nervous system, is like the hard drive of a very, very powerful computer. And this computer is binary. So it either is in alignment or out of alignment. We call that energetically, someone's energy. I can feel when someone's energy goes weak by the words they say, the words they don't say, and so I studied several modalities, as I said, and I have my teacher's certificate in psychosomatic therapy, which is the study of how the emotions affect the body. Mm-hmm. And I also went to the Resonance Project Foundation and studied with some quantum physicists. That was a bit challenging because math was not my strongest subject. But I learned so much from that experience and was one of the original emissaries of the Resonance Project Foundation. And I found out that the reason why we're all connected and why remote healing is possible is because we're all made up of atoms. And so the empty space in between the atoms is actually the glue that holds us together. So I really pushed myself to do a lot of different things. When I first began, my mentor gave me permission to teach his method. And this was a huge honor, huge. But I was like in the horrible position of never having spoken in public. I was bullied very badly when I was in school, throughout all my elementary school. So I was terrified, absolutely terrified to speak in public. So I constantly, energetically shifted myself to get neutral to that, and went and took a marketing course and in Vancouver, and I was I was absolutely determined that I was going to do this one way or another. So it was just a process that I put myself through. And what I had to do is just get neutral to the worst outcome and the best outcome. Because if we can get neutral to the best and the worst, then we are strong energetically in between. So this led me to doing seminars like for about 5 years back and forth across Canada. And Morgan, you're aware of that.
Yeah. Yes.
and Morgan was just amazing. Like, we were going back and forth to Ottawa and Vancouver, and I lived in Saskatchewan at the time. And it was a pretty busy schedule, wasn't it, Morgan?
Very, yes.
And so then when I was going through a very challenging divorce, and actually didn't have access to my money for about 5 years. So while I was doing this, and what I found is that the universe just kept supplying what I needed at the time. The right people would come in. And so this is the beauty of energetic shifting. It can be used for, health, fitness. It can be used for career. It can be used for finances. It can be used for real estate sales. Pretty much energy work can be applied to every aspect of life. And then when I moved out here to Kelowna almost 7 years ago, well, 6.5 now, I guess, I realized that, I was going to Europe then and working with a colleague in Europe, in Germany. And so for 3 years, I was traveling back and forth to Europe. I also traveled out to Egypt with another colleague of mine. And he and I went to Egypt together, and back in 2011, in between two revolutions. So there, it was just, everything was just falling into place. And then, as I said, once I did get divorced, it was on Independence Day.
Oh, wow.
So I took that as a good sign. And that's when I sold my property in Saskatchewan and moved out here to Kelowna. I'd been speaking out here on many speaking engagements, and I found the perfect house. And, so then I was in Europe for about 3 years when I first moved here. And then I decided I'm going to start my program, Call to Dance, because we all have our own calling. And I called it Call to Dance because I was tired of marching through life. I wanted to dance. And when I learned about quantum physics, what I learned is that, with the Fibonacci series of numbers, that is like the perfect organization, the exactly perfect organization of space. And so with the Fibonacci series of numbers, one, it starts off 1, and then 1 plus 2, and then 2 reaches back and grabs 1, and then it's 3, and then 3 reaches back, a 5 reaches back and grabs 3, and so the natural state of things is that we take movements forward, and then we allow ourselves to move back. And sometimes we go sideways, you may have noticed.
Yeah.
So, but that's what we call dancing. See, because if you're just moving forward all the time, then you're marching. And, that leads to burnout.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
man.
it was, I guess the biggest part for me was that I love doing this. I just love it. So it doesn't feel like work for me. I mean, there's certain aspects of my business that I don't enjoy as much as others, and technological issues,
Yeah.
which you guys may be familiar with.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, like this work, I mean, I've been very blessed. I've had amazing mentors. I've worked with like amazing people, and from all around the world. And I mean, it's just been, you know, there's been some real challenges in it. And like doing video for, like, I was terrified to do video. And I decided this year, no, I'm not terrified to do video. I'm going to. And so every Wednesday, with my radio show now, I do generally a Facebook Live. I had you lovely ladies on my show. And I'm starting to really enjoy it now, you know? So
I would never ever have thought that you hated video, Colette. You're such an incredible natural on radio and on your video with the show. So,
well, thank you.
I'm really curious. So, you know, so much of what you're saying is resonating, and I mean, internally, I'm kind of going aha to so much of what you're speaking about. I want to hear more from you about this incredible truth that you've shared with us about how, you know, how we can go with the flow, and you call it dancing, which I love so much. And for me, Colette, I'm interested because that takes a certain amount of trust, I think. And I've certainly, one of the common aspects that we found with this project, with people who are either experiencing burnout or who, you know, are starting to think, actually, I might be burning out right now, is a lack of trust in themselves, in their own bodies, and in the universe generally. So can you talk a little bit more about that, your experience of how to overcome that?
Yes. What I have discovered is exactly what you're saying, that a lot of the time for a lot of people, the challenge is to be able to, when we, like what I was saying before about the absolute best and the absolute worst, what I found is getting neutral to the absolute best and the absolute worst, then everywhere in between, you can allow yourself to I don't really like so much the word trust. I don't trust anyone. I don't trust myself, but I have faith in myself
Okay.
that I can handle, that I can handle it, because I understand that I can go inward, and every single question that I have will be answered from here, from my heart and from my central nervous system. And what I have discovered for a lot of people, you know, if you tell people that, you know, get neutral to the absolute best and the absolute worst, most people would assume that the absolute worst would be the absolute worst. But most people go energetically weak when they're getting close to getting what they want, at absolute best case scenario.
Now that's interesting.
You know, it's because we only operate, most people, at around 4% of our potential, because we can only see 4% of the spectrum. And so people will say, well, I'll believe it when I see it. And it's because we have eyes that we can't see.
Yeah.
And so going inward and understanding that, you know, we can energetically tune in and strengthen ourselves on the central nervous system. And I like to plug in, like if you think about yourself like a computer, I like to plug into the heart, because energetically, you know, I've empowered people and myself to do things that maybe I wasn't 100% strong to. But if you plug into your heart, then we're accessing authentic desires. And we tune into what I call HSN, the higher self network. It's kind of like MSN, but the difference is on HSN, on MSN, you're aware you're chatting with other people. And on HSN, the higher self network, you are constantly, your subconscious and unconscious mind are constantly chatting
Wow.
with all, with everything and everyone, and your conscious mind may not be aware of it. So that my experience has been that I can take, if I'm in overwhelm, I break it down into like the teeniest, tiniest pieces that I need to, so that I get one little piece at a time. And I have faith in myself that if I do that, that I will be able to get through, you know, challenges. And challenges are just possibilities in disguise.
Oh, that's a good, I like that way. I love the way you said that. That's good. So, so then, you know, if someone's experiencing burnout, hi, Kitty.
This is Stella.
Hi, Stella.
She loves to be on the radio and
hi, Stella.
Makes an appearance. So if someone is, you know, experiencing burnout and, you know, doesn't have much sort of get up and go, and obviously because, you know, they're feeling not great, what do you suggest is like sort of the first steps that they can they do this for themselves? And
absolutely, everyone, I have shared this information with you know, over thousands of people over the years. I've never met anyone who doesn't have this ability. Some people have a tendency to be a little bit more driven towards this type of work, but I have shared this information with everyone, and basically what we're doing is we're identifying what the leading weakness is, and then we're eliminating it by, it's just like pressing delete on this biocomputer, and the hard drive, as I said, being the spine and the central nervous system. And as we delete those weaknesses, we become stronger and stronger and stronger towards our goals. It's very, very powerful. And, you know, I love, this is what I just love, is when people, they'll get that aha moment and they're just, you know, wow, like, you know, it really isn't what you think it is. Because people, if you ask a logical question and you require a logical answer, what happens is when you ask that question, you're just going to get another question and another question and another question. If you go with your intuition, then you're going to find a creative solution. And the solution for me may not be we could be in what looks like a very similar situation, but you are a unique being. I am a unique being. Human beings are multifaceted, and we operate on very many places, you know, dimensions, existences in time and space. And so what would be a perfect answer for you wouldn't maybe not apply to me. And that's why energetically, if you test it, it never will be what you think it is. Never. It will, you know, the weakness, if we go into ourselves like this and we look for and use all our intuition, and then we add perception to that, then we get insight. And insight's a beautiful thing.
Wow, it really is. Oh, I love how you've described that. I can feel it. I can feel it in my body as you're talking. And, you know, I love that, because when I had an experience of burnout, one of the things that was a big aha moment for me was I was caught in my mind. I was doing that. I was asking question after question after question. And that in itself is exhausting. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, that can burn you out. Just be, you know, in that loop of the mind. and one of the things that helped to shift that for me was through yoga, was getting back into the body and trusting the body to speak. So tell us more. I'm really curious about intuition, and, you know, how can we tap into our intuition if we're not that familiar with it? How would you suggest that we begin to tap into that?
Well, for myself, my family has kind of, I come from a long line of people who are kind of a little odd. So, if you start to, like, this is a very consistent way of tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
So what I feel like is one of the leading weaknesses for burnout is not having the answers, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So when a person is like, in that loop, on that hamster wheel, um, going inward like this and just putting some energy into the spine. And then I tell people, put your tongue on the roof of your mouth. That is your governing channel. And that connects you to that source energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so intuitively, as I said, one of the leading weaknesses for a lot of people would be that there's so much information and misinformation and misrepresentation and misinterpretation. And it's overwhelming these days that we have access to all this information, and we're also expected social media, like all the extra things that a person needs to do for business. And I mean, you may have noticed there isn't a day that goes by that you couldn't do one more thing.
Yeah.
So there has to be a point where you say, okay, that's enough for today.
Yeah.
And what I do is, before I even get out of bed, in the morning, I tune into my day and I ask myself, what would be the leading weakness for my day that I have to accomplish? So by the time my feet hit the floor, I have managed to sort of clear the weakness that I can feel coming up for myself. And also what I tell people is, if you break it down, the overwhelm down, then you can test energetically, what am I strongest to doing at this moment? And it may not be what you think it is. So probably not what you think it is. It'll, for myself, I also have been working on a project now for 13 years called Tales from the Vector, which is 64 cards. It's sort of like an oracle, but these are energy correcting cards. So they've been out for 3 years now. There's 64, as I said, and I'm working on painting number 63 right now.
Oh, wow.
And so I had picked in the morning, I picked 3 cards. And so I was tuning into this group of people here. And this is the first card I picked. And can you see that okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Beautiful.
this card is called Reckless Abandon. WRECK. Let's abandon. This is my freedom card. And these paintings are very large. They're 3 feet by 4 feet, a lot of them, and they have a lot of crystal energy embedded. They generally take me 6 months to do one. And the longest one that I ever worked on was the solar plexus, courage.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but this card here is about discipline of the mind. And so when we get into a place where we have discipline in our mind and we have order, so many times, if I'm having kind of like a rough day and I just can't seem, if my the number one weakness for a lot of people is their physical environment. And what I mean by that, I might be sitting there thinking, I got a problem with a relationship, or I got a problem, I got to look after this, or I've got a technical problem. But when I test it energetically, it's because my space has become too cluttered. And it makes it very challenging to discipline your mind when your physical environment is out of order. And very important all the way to the depths of our, being, because this also affects the organization of our cells. And it affect, and the organization of our cells and our thoughts then go out to the universe and become very big. And so we pull all that energy back in. So this is a really good card for decluttering. The other one, I used to sometimes think I had an issue with computer technology. And then I discovered it was my attitude. So this is my attitude card. This is Shooting Star. And she lives on the edge of chaos. So this is basically the base chakra. This is like when we go into survival mode, and oh my God, everything's so important, and life and death, when it really isn't. And then the other card that came up for today, I love this beautiful card. This is devotion. So this is about your purpose. And so when your career and your purpose are strong to each other, then that's when the magic really starts happening. And so many people ask me, what's my purpose? I want to know my purpose. And I'm like, your purpose is to be the best version of you. And if you've noticed, with all the challenges of that, being in business and being maybe in a business that's not like mainstream, that the challenges, the possibilities in those challenges, it's fun. It's and it's not about pushing and pushing. It's about being inspired and anticipating all these wonderful things to happen, and then it's fun.
Oh, thank you for reminding me of that. I sometimes get into this space, especially when I went through burnout. It's like there was no joy or fun. I just couldn't get it and grasp it. It seemed to be very elusive. So I definitely resonate with that decluttering your space, because I know I feel so good when things are set up and organized and clean, and so that's a good reminder to do that too.
And also, if the shift hits the fan,
well, yeah.
It's a lot easier if you're organized. You know what I mean, in your business.
Yeah.
You're right.
And see, the thing is for a lot of people, they'll think they have like a business problem, and like I said, they might have a clutter problem, in their home. And it really, because what I've noticed since we've put these cards out for 3 years now, and people put them around their house directionally, and it for people that are wanting to declutter, this one really, it just, every time you look at it, she starts talking to you, declutter. So it even if it means like just starting with a drawer, but committing to that. And so when there's a lot to do, when I decided, okay, I'm going to write my book, The Truth is Funny, Shift Happens, it's stuff you wish your mom had known to tell you.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And I started off just doing 15 minutes a day, because I didn't know how to write a book. But I said, okay, for 15 minutes a day, I am going to sit in front of the computer and I am going to write a book. And even if I only get one word out for that book, for 15 minutes, I'm going to dedicate myself. And if nothing comes up, I'm going to tune into what are the weaknesses here? What are the weaknesses? And before I knew it, once I made that commitment, then all of a sudden I was writing half an hour a day. And then sometimes I would find myself like 4 hours and realize, oh my God, I haven't even gone to the bathroom or had breakfast yet. Because I was just so in the zone. So that's what I recommend for people is, if you make that commitment, then you recognize, hey, anyone can do something for 15 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day even, you know, and just recognizing that it just gains momentum as you recognize, hey, I really do want to do this. I want to be my best. I want to do my best. And then we get into that beautiful place, like I said, of devotion, where you are very clear what your purpose is. That for me, that is fundamental. I know what my purpose is. I'm a Sagittarius. I like to travel. I like to meet with people. I have a lot of energy. This, you know, I really, really embrace that. And I mean, I've never, there's been days where I've been wondering, what was I thinking? And then I realized, oh, I was weak. Energetically. What was I thinking? I was thinking instead of feeling. So, yeah.
So it is a constant check-in though. Like, well, maybe not constant, but you know, it is
pretty constant.
Yeah, okay.
There is no magic pill, just so everybody knows, where shift doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
This is, you know, so I find, you know, that the less I take things personally, and people will say, well, that seems kind of funny if I work with someone and say they're having a relationship issue with their spouse or whatever, and I tell them, don't take it personally. And they're saying, how can you not take your spouse personally? Because that person is just reflecting back to you who you are. They're mirroring what bothers you. If I in my manuals, I have a saying, you know, for karma, been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. So if someone's really bothering you, like they really bug you, you know, absolutely that it's something you don't like about yourself. And that's something, and when we start getting into that place where we recognize that everyone is mirroring back to us to give us this beautiful clarity about who we are. I just got so many rushes just
same.
feeling that. Yeah. And so quite often people will feel that when I talk, is like they'll feel all this energy running through them. And, you know, so just I can really feel that right now. And so I pull myself inward, and I get into a place where, okay, now I can test. Boom, 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 boom. And so you know, you can, and what's so beautiful about it is if someone is energetically taking responsibility for themselves, they are also clearing generations forward and backward, generally at least 7 ancestors and descendants. So it's like a very powerful thing. Sometimes people will feel instant relief, instant. And quite often, if you listen to my radio show, when people phone in, I'll get a baseline from them, from 10 being like hair on fire, press the panic button, and 0 being, hey, I'm totally cool. And they'll go from like a 10 to a 0 in 2-3 minutes. Because if the energy, and there's many layers to it, you know what I like. So some people will clear like thousands and thousands of layers in one energetic shift. I've seen it happen where tumors shrink, or you know, I had a client who had lost the use of his arm for 6 years, and he had been, you know, to all the big clinics and everything. There was nothing they could do. They were talking about amputating. And so, you know, I worked with him, and he regained the use of this arm.
Wow.
And the energetic shift for that was, he was him and his wife were expecting twins. And I told him, you know, you can't hold 2 babies with one hand or with one arm. And so, and I could feel him just, you know, and within 3 months later, when the little ones were born, he had totally regained the use of this arm. And he was, now he bench presses 350 pounds. So, you know, and it was like, it wasn't like he believed in it. Like, as a matter of fact, his wife made him come to me. Or she wouldn't marry him. So funny. That's when I knew he was in love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting what you're saying, Colette, because that to me also resonates directly with what the card was saying about decluttering, not just your physical space, but also that sense of, there's a huge amount of ancestral clearing that can happen here, and that in itself is decluttering emotionally.
And descendants also.
Yes.
Because even if you don't have any descendants, you may have had situations in your life where like where a woman's been with a man and there was potential for a descendant. And so sometimes those unborn descendants are even more work than the ones that you actually have on the planet here.
Okay, gosh.
And when a baby's coming in, you can energetically tune in and start clearing the karma for them before they arrive. And, karma is just cause and effect. It's not good or bad or positive or negative. Karma is just cause and effect. And if we start to tune into these without any judgment, because some of the craziest, wildest things will come up.
Yeah.
And that's why, it's so interesting how what the real weakness is in it, and people are like so shocked. Oh my God, it just feels so much better. And like, as I said, like that's an extreme one where you regain use of limbs. I've worked with autistic children that have been labeled disabled, and worked with never with the children. I work with the parents, and then I energetically shift for absolutely everyone that is involved in that child's situation, that it would be in that child's highest good. And that generally, they'll start being able to come off medications, etc., and be calmer. And so those are, there's just so many beautiful things that can happen. Or sometimes people will just start, they didn't realize that they could paint, and all of a sudden they'll be painting, these beautiful, or they didn't know they could sing, and now they can. And
it's just absolutely fascinating, and it's so empowering. It is fascinating work. Colette, let's talk a little bit about the power of humor and fun. Your sense of humor is infectious, and it is energizing. It's incredible to be around. One of the common things that we find with people in our community, and certainly some of the common stories that have been coming out from the speakers that we've been interviewing, is generally, as a society, we have forgotten how to have fun. We have forgotten how to invite humor into our world. Tell us a little bit more about the healing power of humor.
Well, it's kind of funny because the whole thing about when people laugh, I talk about the cosmic joke. And like, basically the dichotomy is that most people want to be touched, right? And we're atoms, so we never could touch. and which comes in handy if you think about that person, you're thinking, oh, what was I thinking when I dated them? We never really touched. It's not about turning a negative into a positive. That's impossible. You can't do that. But it's about really getting into a place where there's no judgment, and just being able to recognize, hey, I can, when people will roar with laughter. Sometimes, like, they'll be, one time in Germany, there was this man, and he was having his girlfriend had cheated on him. And so he was up on the stage, and I was energetically tuning into him. And when I said to him, like, when he started to, he was just crying. And as he cried, it was crazy. Outside, it poured and poured and poured outside of the hotel. Like, it was just raining. And then when I said to him, he said, yeah, she broke my heart, blah, 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 and I feel so sad. And then I'm like, when I tested energetically, you're actually relieved. And he started to laugh, and then the sun would come out.
Wow.
And then he, then he'd go back down a little bit again and be like, but I loved her so much. And, and my colleague Mark was saying, well, like a lot of men, it's kind of coming up weak that you don't, that he wanted a threesome. And Mark says, so well, you could do that. And I said, Mark, that's what he already has. It's just not in the way that most men think of it, And so once he realized that he was totally neutral and that he was actually relieved, and that's really how he felt, he was able to let go of the anger. He was of the grief, and and then it stayed sunny.
Yeah.
It was incredible to watch this. Like, just very, very powerful. Because everybody in the room could just feel this. And then for the weather to change every 2 minutes. It was, and so these are if people just recognize, some people will cry when they're energetically shifted. They'll just start weeping. And I call that, like, for a lot of people, that's like sentimental sadness. So when we let a part of ourselves go, even if it's like not a good part or not a strong part, and it was really painful situation, people can get very comfortable with discomfort, what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And so, as they're letting go of this part of themselves, they'll start to weep. Or I prefer when they cry or when they laugh.
Yeah, okay.
It's just more fun. But either way, if someone's laughing or crying and you don't have any context when you see a picture of them, you can't really tell whether someone's laughing or crying without context. When, if you look at that. So this is so powerful to get into this place of having faith, and just really understanding that, it doesn't require that you believe in yourself. A lot of people have a lot of limiting beliefs about themselves. You may have known.
Yeah.
I had so many limiting beliefs from being bullied and, I can't do this and that. And so for me, it's just so much fun to face those challenges when I know that I can energetically shift it. Eventually the situation is going to improve, even if it is only one little tiny bit at a time. If a person stays calm and goes to their center, the outcome is always better than if they are in chaos.
Yes.
And this is the other thing that I think is really important for people, that the type of people that would, be drawn to this kind of work, is just really recognizing that you deserve to be the best version of yourself.
Thank you.
It's your God-given right. And if you're always in the right place at the right time, because you absolutely understand this, that, and things are perfectly imperfect a lot of the time. You may have noticed that also. Yeah. So being perfectly imperfect is, good enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful, Colette. And thank you for all those funny stories and juicy nuggets of information there. So I understand that you have a gift for our listeners, and I'd love for you to share that.
Yeah, about 6 months ago or so ago, I did a recording, affirmations for success that really work. And so I just want to explain, when I say affirmations, a lot of people will make affirmations and they'll just keep reading it over and over again and try to convince themselves, And so when you're listening to my affirmations for success, I'm actually energetically shifting, like it's built in, that about, 80% of the weaknesses within any group are very similar. And then, as I said, sometimes you have to get more into the individual. So you can go to my website, thetruthisfunny.com. And if you sign up for the newsletter, you will receive these affirmations for success. I think it's around 35 minutes. A lot of people just really love it. What I'm doing is, as I'm saying the affirmations, I'm testing the energy and strengthening for every single person listening, that it would clear their leading weakness at the time. And so a lot of people have found them very powerful. And so it's my pleasure to share those.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's incredibly generous. And I know that our listeners are going to be excited to go and sign up and get hold of that, because that just sounds amazing.
Well, thank you.
So, Colette, from my heart to yours, I want to express my gratitude for having you here and for sharing the space with you. And thank you so much for being here and for speaking with us. It's been such a pleasure.
It's absolutely my pleasure. I enjoy it so much. And I really have a lot of love here for this energy. It's fun.
Beautiful. Thanks, Colette. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan, for inviting me on this project. And thank you to everybody that is listening to this, and also for all of your time and energy. Very, very much appreciated.